Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Kevin McNamara. I'm a physical therapist here with Pro Sport, and today we're going to be discussing 4 mobility drills for the hips, as this is hip month for us, and we're going to walk you through those guys today. All right, so the first drill I want to go over with you guys here is just going to be kind of like a true hip flexor stretch. Andrew's in a half kneeling position here. He's got something underneath the trail knee to provide a little bit of support. Back leg is propped up on something, whether that's a couch, whether that's a box, something you guys can use to get a little bit of additional hip extension. He's got a nice straight line from his ear to his shoulder to his hip. And the other thing Andrew's doing a great job of here is he's kind of tucking his tail underneath him, getting a little bit of posterior tilt, and that prevents us from kind of reaching forward, cranking through the lumbar spine, where it's going to be much more hip capsule as opposed to hip flexor. So something to be mindful of with that one, and that is the half kneeling hip flexor stretch. Next drill we got here, this is called the tactical frog. Andrew's kind of in a spread position here. He's got about 90 degrees of knee flexion, and he's kind of sinking back into his hips through there, doing a real good job, keeping a nice straight spine. And what we're feeling here is we're getting a nice adductor stretch kind of down through there. And Andrew can kind of play around with a little bit of hip flexion where he feels comfortable, and kind of just leaning into that stretch, taking a couple nice deep breaths through there, staying nice and flat through the back here. And he's just gonna kind of sink slowly into a little bit more hip flexion, feeling that good sort of deep stretch down through the adductors. A little bit more of an advanced stretch, but a great position there to get a good deep stretch through the adductors in addition to a little bit of hip flexion. Got Andrew set up here. This is kind of an adductor rock back. So it's a little bit of a kind of regression from the tactical frog. What we're doing here is we're working single length through the side that's extended there. And Andrew's gonna get a little bit of hip flexion through this side. He's gonna keep that nice straight spine kind of rocking back and forth into a little bit of hip flexion on his left leg here, while we're getting a good stretch and lengthening through the left side, or the right side rather, through that adductor group through there. So Andrew can kind of play around, take a few deep breaths where he starts to feel a little bit of tightness, and just slowly kind of sink in, working concomitant hip flexion with a little bit of length through the adductor on the opposite side. All right, so the last drill we have here, this is the Bretzel Stretch. Andrew's head is supported, his bottom leg is in a little bit of hip flexion, with his top leg moving behind him into a little bit of hip extension. We can play around with the degree of extension here, using a belt or a strap to kind of assist that kind of top leg, pulling this hip behind him. And we can also add a little bit of a thoracic component, where Andrew's grabbing his ribs here, slowly rolling away, feeling that good kind of transverse motion and rotation through the upper back. All right, so those are the 4 mobility drills that we went through this week regarding the hip. In terms of duration and frequency, I think a good place to start with this is holding for about 3 sets of 30 seconds. You can also utilize breaths for 5 to 10 breaths. Just kind of easing into some of those positions and seeing how it goes for you. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office here, and we'll see you next time.